Hello, my name is Matt Knopf. I'm with a company called PNG Technologies out of Michigan. We're a supplier of natural gas and propane kits for generators. We're going to do an installation here on a Generac GP15000E. The reason we picked this particular generator is because this is probably amongst the toughest ones there is because it's a 4-bolt pattern. Most of the other smaller generators, as Predators, Hondas, Briggs & Strattons, they're all a 2-bolt pattern that comes off the side of the engine. This is a top mount engine. So on this particular one here, this is basically what you're going to end up getting in a tri-fuel kit. You'll get all your hardware, your fasteners, you'll get your secondary regulator, you'll end up with your power elbow, your nipple, and you're also going to get a ball valve that will install in here, and that's a manual ball valve. They do also carry an electric lock-off for remote starts and things like that, but this particular one we're just doing the manual. In the tri-fuel kit, basically you're going to get your high pressure regulator 2, which will include your POL valve for your hookup for your tank for a 20-pound barbecue. This will be the hose that will supply with the kit. It's 42 inch. We only supply that length because most people just have the 20-pound barbecues. And then this connection will just go in here, and then we'll also go into this fitting here. This is the adapter that goes with this kit. It is a 4-bolt. This is a 2-barrel on this particular unit. And there's a lot of hardware and fastener with this. On this particular one, the way it extends it, it brings out the intake, so we'll be extending that. It comes with the gaskets and all that, and we'll show you that when we do the install. Now the optionable things is that we do carry a 48 inch and a 72 inch flexible line with your 3/4 inch fittings, which are not quick connects because we don't recommend that on the natural gas because of the orifice size. And that's all due to the power elbow because you will be restricting fuel here to get your fine idle on the engine. This one here that we carry is a quick connect. And we recommend this only for propane because it is under pressure, whereas this more is a volume draw under the BTU. So this unit here, if you do buy this, and you can see that online, you can purchase it, that will connect into the ball valve here, which will install into the regulator, and that way you can disconnect that and use that unit mobile for yourself. So that's basically what's going to come into the kit, and these are kind of some option things that we do carry. And this is some of the tools that we're going to use on this job here. There are some different metrics and standards on this one here. So what we'll do is we'll get started on this unit here. To give you a little idea, what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to end up removing the air cleaner on this to get a start with it. And just, they have 2 caps on top that we can remove that with. And once we do that, when they make this, they have 2 little plastic flaps on each side of this cover. And what we're going to have to do, because the hose extension that comes out this side when we hook up the secondary regulator, that flap will be in the way. And also, if you look around on this side over here, there is an electronic choke that's under this unit here. Okay, and you can see this is like this, but when we install that adapter, it's going to end up extending that out about 1.5 inches, so that way it'll end up interfering with that, so we're going to have to cut that. You can cut that by either grinding it or a saw or something that you're going to have to use. Well, I have a little bucket here that I'm going to use to just keep my spare parts in, and then what I'm going to do here first is I'm going to go over here and modify this so I get rid of this extra clip. We've already broke off a piece here, and what we'll do is we'll come over here to the grinder. Hopefully you have a grinder. If not, you're going to end up using a file or some sort. But I'll show you just kind of how we're going to do this just to make this smooth here. going to have to remove a portion of this so it does clear the electronic choke. So I'm just going to grind away this portion up here and remove this material here. This portion can stay because it's not going to hit it. Remove some of the burrs. So what we'll do is we'll just set this to the side in our little bucket we have up here. So now what we're going to do is, I'll let you see inside here, we're going to remove the air cleaner, and that's just held on by one wing nut up here. We'll get that off there. So that is. Pull this to the side. Okay, now there's there's studs that are in here. We're going to end up having to pull these out here, and we'll show that in the next step. But first we'll remove the 4 bolts that hold on this little cover here. There is a gasket between here, so be careful on that. And that particular one there is a 10 millimeter in the inside of this. So we'll remove this for you. And these are just nuts here, so. The manufacturer, what they do is they supply some bolts that end up going through here, but we have found that if you cut 6 millimeter rods, it actually works better, and that's what we're actually going to end up going to. So, but on this particular one, we'll show you both methods. So let's get this off here, remove this. Okay, one last one here. And we're going to go step by step on this. So this video is going to be normally longer than most, but we'll kind of get you each step that you got. So, okay, we're going to remove this here. And you'll see the gasket. We'll set that in there. You'll see the gasket in here. Just want to be careful with them. Being a newer machine, it's a little easier to remove them. So now that we have that, the way this is we're going to have to remove the intake studs here. So they're Allen heads, so, and when you do this, just make sure that you try to not pull the gasket away from where it's seated. It just makes it a little bit tougher on you. So we'll get this removed here, and we'll show you the next step in just a minute. Okay, now that we've removed the bolts from the intake, what we're going to do is remove the 4 outer screws here on this cover where your choke is and your start button. So with that, them are actually standard thread. They are 5/16. So let's get rid of those. Take this cover off. Again, I'll use my hand to throw my screws back in. Okay, so there's one. We're also going to end up removing this knob here, which unscrews, and then later on we'll show you how the extension goes on there, because we're going to end up drilling this out a little here. So this knob will unscrew. This will be the only one that you'll have to do. This the choke you don't have to worry about. This is for summer run and winter run there. So let's also get rid of these 2 here. This will make it easy for us to access, pull the intake away from the air cleaner box there. So, okay, you can kind of see it moving a little bit there. So we'll kind of hold it up a little. Okay. that removed. And also when this comes off, you'll notice there's a wire here. That's going to go back and connect back to that, and we'll show you there. So we'll kind of just pull this away now. So now what this is going to do is everything will slide away from here now that we've got the intake bolts disconnected, the bolts that hold the carburetor on. So we'll pull this out now, and you'll see this whole assembly slide out. So what they do now is, like I said, they used to supply bolts. We're trying to get them to switch over to the threaded rod, and you'll see here, for example, so when you take the gasket off, be careful again, because they only give you so many with it. So now what we're going to have to do is remove the studs here, because they're not long enough, and then we'll put new studs in here. That way we can slide the adapter over. So now we're going to go and remove this, and what I do is I just take the channel locks on them, lock them down. It's always good to kind of have a buddy to help you here if you can. Right now we're just doing a video with two of us, so basically I'll just get the first one going and you'll see that, and we'll show you the next step, okay? Okay, now that we removed the existing studs, what we did is we took one out each time, that way we don't interfere with the gasket or tear it up. So now that them are out, we got our longer studs in here, that way we can accept our adapter. So what we did with the adapter here that comes in the kit is it comes with the fittings also. So what we did is we installed this particular fitting here, because we're going to mount the regulator on the right side of the generator. It seemed to be the best access. So this fitting here, we've decided probably the best position is about 5 o'clock. So what we're going to do is we're going to slide this on here now. Okay, we've already got our gasket, and it shows a flow position in here. So your air cleaner's here, so the flow is going to come through. So we just want to make sure that this mounts on here. Okay, now that we got that, then we're going to install our other gasket here. Okay, that way we make sure we got a good seal. And be gentle with them, because you only get a couple gaskets and you don't want to. Okay, now what we're going to do is we're just going to slide this up on here. Okay, we're not going to tighten anything down yet, because as you notice, we're pulling the intake away from the air cleaner housing. So we're going to have a little gap in between here. And then what they do is they supply a ring that will set in here, and we're going to show you how to install that, which we're going to do right now. So the old ones that we took out were the silver ones from here, and obviously they're going to be too short. So in the kit we supply a little bit longer bolt here. So what we're going to do is we're going to just set this up on here as best as we can, and we don't want to tighten this quite down. So we're going to install this up here. We're just giving you this option to show you this here. So now we're going to go back up here, and then now let's install this particular portion back up on this side. That way it'll kind of hold it up for us a little bit. We're not, like I said, we're not going to tighten it down. So alright, what we'll do is we'll put the gasket back on this. Okay, install that back on. Okay, and then this here is going to be in the up position. That's the way it was when we took it off. So let's get that back on here. Okay. They might be spaced a little apart, so you might have to adjust it around a little bit. Obviously, you should see I am. So just make sure that goes on there, okay? We'll push this back up a little bit. On here. Okay, get that back down, okay? And then we'll go back and install the nuts back on there. That way they're on there, we don't have to worry about them. They don't supply no lock nuts. As a matter of fact, when I took this apart, it was very loose in the beginning, so they didn't tighten it down quite tight. So, and I don't know if it's because it was plastic or what, but I almost could have finger tightened them off. Okay, let's get this almost done on there. And now, last one here. Okay. Alright, now what we're going to do, now that you kind of see this up, just pull it up a little bit and just kind of finger tighten, because we're going to get a wrench in there. We'll end up shortening these studs here a little bit here in the next ones, but let's kind of an example of how we're doing it right now. Okay, got that. Alright, now you'll see as I'm coming over here to the side, I'll pull this, let me pull this over a little bit. Okay, you'll see the gap. That's why I was kind of saying be careful when you pull that apart. It's hard to get them in there together. It's real tough. So what I normally do is start the bottom one first with the gasket. Okay, so get your bolt in there. You'll see it stick through. And this is a gasket they're also going to supply with it. So what I'll do is just get that gasket around there, line up my hole. Okay, got the hole lined up, and I'll start it in that hole first, just to get me a good start for it, because it's easier to lie them spacers in there when you got one started. So let me get that in there a little bit for you. And that's the reason we don't tighten that up top on the intake, because this here is a little bit tougher once you get that going. Then so let's get that started there. Okay. A little tougher here. Okay, we'll get that set there. And the reason why we start the bottom one is because when you go to put the top one in, you can kind of see I let the gasket go away from there a little bit, but kind of set that back in there. And then this will set, you see the little slot on it, will set on the top of that bolt. So just kind of spread the gaskets apart. Make sure you kind of pull that away a little bit. And then this will just slide down in there for you. And it'll set on the top of that bolt. Just got to be careful with that gasket because they are touchy. I'll pull that back away. Okay, now that I got that set in there, now what I'll do is I'll start the top one. And then you at least get them lined up through there. Okay, just line it all up. Okay, screw it. The top one's easy. The bottom one's a little tougher. It'd be nice to have a straight Allen like this on a socket. I don't have one with me, but okay. And then the same goes for the other side. We're going to do the same thing. So we'll get to the other side here in a second. Okay, now we got the other side started. We're going to go back to this side. And again, I'm just going to stick the bolt supply through, the longer one they give you. Get the gasket in there. Like I say, you got confined area, so it makes it a little bit tougher to get them on there. Okay. We got that one started now. Okay, so again, I'm just going to take it through, screw it into the intake again, and the gasket's going to flap around. You might have to move this a little bit. That's why everything's all loose right now. So just screw that in. It's always good to go as far as you can with your finger on the bottom side because it's a little tougher because they don't leave as much room. So hold it. We got kind of fortunate on that side because the gasket's still stuck. So now we're going to pull this one back. Okay, we got that back. And again, we're going to use a spacer that we have for the other side. Right here. Okay. Again, we're going to drop this in there. Again, with this along the bolt. So just lay that down in there. Set in there. And then again, with the bolt provided, we'll go through this top half. Just make sure you're not tearing the gasket. Okay. Get that one started. Now we got a good start. What I always do on these is I'll tighten these down first. And when you do that, it's nice to have a little screwdriver or a buddy that can help you because these are a little tougher here. I'll pull this in here a little bit. I'll show you. You want to leave that a little bit loose there so you can move that. And then what I do with a smaller screwdriver, let me grab my small screwdriver here. We're going to lift that adapter spacer up, and that way we can bring that bottom one in a little. And see what I'm saying is, and the reason we use this is because this isn't exactly set perfect. They make this spacer so you can adjust it a little bit. So I'll kind of just get a little screwdriver in and pull it up, just to line that gasket up a little bit. Obviously it's harder to do the bottom half, so what I do is just line it up as best I can here. This back half's pretty fine. The gasket they use is pretty thick, but this one here is a little bit thinner, so I'll just bring this adapter up and then just kind of lock that down a little bit on this top side to hold that spacer up. And if you see, you kind of seen it move up a little bit there, so that definitely does make it a little easier, and then the bottom's fine. And if we move across here on the other side, I'll show you the same thing. And again, just going through some fine steps here because this is a little difficult. So you'll just take a screwdriver and hold it. You can kind of see the gasket held out there a little. Just kind of push it in a little bit. Hold that up. I kind of got oh, just dropped on me. So let's bring this up. So everything's not perfect on it. It does take some trial and error on these. So I got that up. I'm going to hold that screwdriver in there this time. I'm going to bring this in just to kind of hold it in place there. Now we don't have to worry about that falling. She just fell on me a little bit. Let's bring this back up again. There we go. Now we got it falling. So that's what I'm saying. It's not a perfect scenario. We're giving you, I mean, because it is a little difficult, you know, to hold that. It's nice to have your buddy to help you. So, all right, we'll get on the next step here in a second. Okay, now that we've installed the studs here, the new ones that they supply with the kit, we got everything all locked down on both sides. Then we went up here and just go ahead and tighten these down now that everything keeps firm. What we did is we slid our hoses underneath here. That goes in here. That's why you kind of keep this panel clear. That way you can get it up in there. Go ahead and lock this down here on the hose. Put this hose in here. We leave them longer. That way when you come down here, when you put your T in to mount your regulator, you'll see that step when we get to that. But now that we've did that, we got everything all locked down in here. Now we can go ahead and put back our cover. But before we put our cover on, there used to be on this particular side here where you could run winter or summer. It was different altitude issues. So what we did is we drilled this out here, okay? Because what they do is they supply you an extension rod. And the existing rod that's on here, what we're going to do is just screw this onto the rod. If you look in here, you can see the rod. Okay, so we're just going to screw this on here. And what that does is allow us to pull that through that new panel now. That's why we got to drill this. Okay, get this going. Okay, now we got that started. Okay, just all I do is just finger lock it down. It's not going to move anywhere or vibrate. There's nothing on that. Okay, so what I'll do is just bring this up here now, and then just kind of feed that through there. You'll see that kind of pop through. Okay, we got it to pop through. Okay, now don't forget, on this side here, we had a wire. Okay, so we got to make sure we install that back on there. So through that, we'll just go ahead and stick this through this. Put this on here. And then go ahead, just make sure that this pops back through again. You know, because you don't want to lock it down. Now the bottom two you're not going to reinstall back. There's not going to be no vibration issues or anything like that, so it'll be fine. They've been doing this a long time like this. So, okay, now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and lock this down and grab this here. Go ahead and just tighten this back. That one will be your next step. Now all this portion is done up here. Okay? We'll get this locked down. We'll put our cap back on there. Okay, just lock her down good. And now you just go ahead, take your knob that you had. Just make sure it's still clear there. Don't strip it. Take your time and put it on there. Go ahead and do that. Just make sure you can pull it in and out. Now you're good to go. You know your choke's fine. Make sure everything clears here as you do it. you're good to go on that. Now the second step, that when we get to the regulator assembly, is when we're going to get back down to this here now. And then that's why we decided this side would be a little bit easier for it. Everything panned out this way to mount the regulator up in here to keep it away from objects and things like that. So we'll go to that step right now. Okay, now that we got our hoses installed, what we'll do is we'll go ahead and reassemble all our air cleaner stuff back on. So everything will just fit right back on normal, which is really nice. That's what's nice about the adapter style. So we'll go ahead and install that on there. We'll get our wing nut back on. And that way it's all, you know, pretty much everything's OEM, you know, it makes it nice like that. And now that we got that, earlier you noticed we did cut this, and we had to cut this side over here, and that's because the hose is in the way here, and again all of a sudden your choke is, or your governor, I'm sorry. Okay, now what we'll do is we'll go ahead and set this back down. Now if we can bring back over on this side, you'll notice, you'll see how this is moved. This originally was set up here. Now that we've installed the adapter, we're going back. So it's going to be a little further back than what it was on, but as long as you clear, that's fine there. And then we'll go ahead and reinsert the original studs that were with it. Go ahead and get that going. You see everything lines up all good. It makes it really nice. So I'll go ahead and put this back down. Okay, what we got? Make sure it's nice and tight, sealed down. There you go. Okay, now what I'm going to do is I'm going to move the generator over a little bit. Now that we got all that reinstalled, everything's intact here now. So we've got our new extensions in here, all our new gaskets. We've got our adapter in there. We've remodified for the winter and summer run. Now that we've got our hoses over here, now our step is what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and install the secondary regulator. Most of them are always mounted to the frame, no matter what generator it is. So a lot of people, what they'll do, some of them, you can mount it up here, okay, but on this particular unit, the gas tank kind of dumps behind the frame. You can't drill in it. It doesn't make sense there, you know, to do that. So what we do on this one here is we found the best way is to position it right here, okay? That way we can run our T down. We've got our access for our fuel. So now what we're going to do is we're going to mark out this spot to go ahead and drill for these two holes to mount. And then we supply that in the kit also, because obviously these are a little bit longer here. So we'll do that right now. So what we're going to do is just measure out. The best thing to do is either a tape measure or whatever. Just center your bolts, and most of these are 1 7/8 on it, on center on these particular ones. So we'll go ahead and mark this down here, and then what I'll do is we've already kind of looked. You know, we want to stay away from the weld here. We want to make sure we're flat in there. We make sure we got some distance in here. So we'll take our marker, just go ahead, set it up on there. We'll get our center. Go ahead and mark that. Kind of just eyeball down the cross frame, you know, on the tubing there, just to give us a little idea of where we're going to go. Now it's obviously it's easier to make a nice little punch in there. So what we'll do, we'll take a punch mark. You know, and on these here, if you get off a little bit, you're not going to hurt much. You know, just get you a little mark on there, just to set it. Take your little hit on it. That way your drill bit doesn't wander. Now, if you don't have any of that, you know, the drill bit will wander, but you can still do it. So let's go ahead and make our marks here. Get our holes. And careful, the tubing's thin. This isn't solid. This is a thin tube. So when you break through that first half, you don't want to slam down on it. So we'll go ahead and drill this. this down on here. Okay, we got our first hole. Now we're going to go for our second one. Okay, go ahead and get that lined up. And again, make sure you don't pressure too much to it. Okay? Take your second here. Okay, we're clear through each one of them. So we'll set that to the side. And now, obviously, we're going to have a little bit of burrs in here, so we'll remove them. So now, what we'll do is we'll remove the bolts that were on here out. We'll just throw them in our little bucket here. So. Okay, now what we'll do is, I don't install it. If you put this in a vise, you got a chance of cracking it. So, you know, most places, you know, if you're a manufacturer, you got the tooling to hold it, but here we don't. Vices will sometimes gnar that up. So let's get this out of our way now, and I'll get the bolts for that to mount it. And again, them are supplied with the kit. So let me get my little rag here. Okay, so we'll just kind of dust this off. There's not many burrs on it, so we'll think we're fine there. So what I'll do is I'll just put me a little washer up top, start that, bring her through the frame. Okay, stick it up through there. I always like to stick one on this side. Get that started. Okay, just leave her loose. Do the same with this one here. Put in there. Just before you put it all the way through, just stick your flat washer on that side. Okay, now we got that one up. Install that one. Okay. Now we do supply the nuts and the lock washers in case you do have to go through your framing on some units. So in this case we're not going to use them. So we'll bring these up, hand tighten them. Okay. Now we'll give them a nice little snug down. And again, remember, this is okay. Now that we got the regulator installed, what we're going to do is put the T in line, which is in the repair kit. So we'll just assemble this together. We use, like I said, the liquid Teflon. You can use the tape, but just kind of get it up there, get your idea where you're going to be, and then just cut that off. You can either use wire cutters, or we have these here. This makes it a little bit easier. Get that cut there. Get our hose clamps on here. And we'll get this installed on here. Okay, get that tightened up. Alright. Okay, get this last one on here, and then we'll get the fitting in the regulator, your power elbow, that we're going to end up adjusting here in a little bit once we run it. So this will be the power elbow that you get with it. So we'll just put a little dope on it. Screw that in here. What I do is I kind of run it forward, because when this comes down, it'll kind of lift this hose up a little bit. So we'll droop this down here. So let's get this installed on here. Okay, now that we got that, what we're going to do is you're going to end up with 2 of these in the kit. So we're going to end up cutting off one of them. So I'll just kind of slide it on here for now just to see my length. And we're going to be, just want to make sure we got no kinks in it, you know. So we're going to take this and cut this here. Put our clamps over. Okay, get one more clamp. Slide this on here. Like I said again, just make sure you got no kinks in there because it'll restrict the flow. So we'll get this tightened down. Okay, one more here. And then that'll finish this step here. And then we'll go ahead and install our inlet fittings. Okay, in the kit you're going to get these 3 items here for hooking up your other line for your propane. We use a different hose here testing because we do so many of them, so I'm not going to install this on this particular job. So, but I'll put this on here and then we'll put our fitting in there. So again, just put you some sealant on there. Get that started. Here. Look at your, I always kind of put this valve facing towards you. It's a little easier to turn, and I'll put it down on the side like this. So in case you ever got to go and adjust it, you shouldn't have to. It's pre-factory set. So, but just in case you ever have to, it does make it a little easier to get to. So let's get this tight. You don't want to over tighten it because you are going into aluminum here. This is brass, this is steel, this is aluminum, so you can crack that. You just got to be careful when you do that, that you don't over tighten it. Like I said, I'm going to put it off to the side so I can reach that if I have to. So, okay, that's locked down. Now what we'll do is we'll take this outside, hook up the propane, and run her. We'll show you how to adjust this here. Okay, now that we got everything installed, we're outside, we're going to run it. I kind of wanted to explain this to you before we run it because you're not going to hear me as the thing's running. But this is going to be your main adjustment here. This is called a load block. And what you're doing is actually restricting fuel to give your best signal between your carburetor and your regulator, because this is controlled off of engine vacuum. So what I do is I loosen this up, get my jam nut loose, so I got a little gap in there so I can turn this. I'll open it up till she's loose, because that way I know I'm dumping enough fuel in there. Make sure your chokes are all off. You never need choke with propane because you got to have a good vacuum signal. So let me turn on the propane here. And let's see if we can get her to start. Now, if you don't have electric start, this could possibly take you a little longer because of getting it's so fine of a tune. So, let's see what we got here. Sometimes she's fussy, but that's a fine line. Okay, we're getting close. Okay, just keep playing with it. It's all you can do. Almost got her going. It's at an idle. So what you're going to want to do is you're going to want to run it up going to be, because you still might have to adjust it, so let's pick it up. And we'll bring her back down, make sure she idles good. Go ahead and lock your jam nut down. Good to go. Now you're going to want to run it a little bit, obviously. And then once we get these all set, I'll shut this off. Once everything's all set, the installations aren't that difficult. There are different units out there, but like I said, we chose this one because it is a little bit more difficult because of being a 4-bolt pad. These are the crates that will ship these units into your home or business. Now, if you go to your home, obviously, the freight company's going to charge you, it's right around $100 more because you got to have a lift gate, but it will come in this crate to protect your unit. So that's about it on the install. I'd like to thank you again. This is Matt Knopf with PNG Technologies. You can find us on the website at www.pngtechnologies. So again, thank you very much. I hope this helps out.